My mother was unique. When I was 5, I thought my mother could do no wrong. When I was 13, I didn't think she could do anything right. I told her she was weird. She told me she was unique. One weird, unique thing about my mother was what she called her premonitions. She could tell a thing before it happened, which made it really hard to get away with anything. Once, when I was 15, my mother went to the city with a friend for what she called a little power shopping. They'd make a day of it, and all 8 of us kids had somewhere to go while she was gone. One brother got to go to a softball game, another had swim team practice. My littlest sister got to go to a birthday party. I had to go to catechism. As soon as my mother pulled out of our driveway, I changed into my jeans, and I beelined it straight for O'Malley's farm. Danny O'Malley and his 5 brothers dared me to ride Banshee, their green-broke horse who got her Irish witch name for really good reasons. I was no sooner in the saddle than Banshee started crow-hopping and bucking, then jumped the fence. She raced for the barn, taking me with her through a thick stand of pine trees. The branches smacked me in the face, leaving their bloody claws on my cheeks and forehead. I managed to hold on through the whole unpleasant affair until I was ultimately taken out by Mrs. O'Malley's clothesline. The O'Malley boys found that hilarious. Even though I sustained a mild concussion, a bloody nose, and a mortally wounded pride, I limped home expecting to find an empty house. Instead, there was my mother sitting at the kitchen table with the first aid kit out. "Well, you don't look as bad as I thought." She gently wiped the blood off my wounds. "I thought you were going shopping," I said. "I was, but I got halfway there and had one of my premonitions you were going to need me, so I made Fiona turn around and bring me home." She was like that. Now, while her ESP was disconcerting, the thing that made her especially weird was her almost pathological obsession to embarrass us kids. For my 13th birthday, she invited all my friends over for a party. I usually didn't invite anyone over for fear of what she might do, and I wasn't really sure this was going to be a really good idea. But things were going unexpectedly well until she made her appearance on stage wearing a ridiculous long brown curly wig, playing a ukulele, and performing her rendition of Tiny Tim singing "Tiptoe Through the Tulips" in a high-pitched warble. The absolute pinnacle of her embarrassment career happened on my first day of junior high school. I had gone from the relatively safe environment of elementary school, where in the 6th grade I was at the top of the food chain, to Johnny Appleseed Junior High School, where in the 7th grade I was at the bottom. I had spent the whole day trying not to be noticed. Normally I had to walk to and from school, but on this auspicious day, my mother thought it would be fun to pick me up from school in her Chevy Impala, convertible with the top down, wearing a clown suit. She painted her face white with big red lips, wore an orange wig, and even had one of those horns that honks like a goose with tonsillitis when you squeeze it. I tried to pretend I didn't know her, but she honked her sick goose horn and called out my name so the whole school could hear, "Oh, Nancy, Nancy, your chariot awaits." I crouched down in the back seat of the convertible in the vain hope there were still a few kids who didn't put together that this weird, unique person was my mother. Her weirdness rating went off the charts when I was 12 or 13, and she told me how babies were made. A tutorial which lasted all of 2 minutes and consisted solely of the mechanics of the act, which she likened to plugging in the toaster. I was horrified. My cousin Elmo had been shocked once when he plugged in the toaster. He was thrown to the floor, shaking like he was having a grand mal seizure, foaming at the mouth, and had to be taken away by ambulance. I looked at my mother with horror-driven awe that she had wanted children so badly she was willing to go through that kind of agony to get them. "Oh my God," I said when I could finally speak. "That means you've plugged in the toaster 8 times?" "Oh no, honey," she said whimsically, "lots more than 8. Besides being weird, my mother was a terrible cook and had a limited culinary repertoire. Growing up, I thought iceberg was the only kind of lettuce there was. All other vegetables came in a can, and there were only 3 spices in the world: salt, pepper, and McCormick's seasonal. If it weren't for the invention of the can opener and the advent of frozen foods, we would have all starved to death, I'm sure. When I came home from school, the first thing I always asked was, "What's for dinner?" Kraft mac and cheese from a box was tolerable. I could take Swanson's chicken pot pies if I picked out the peas and the little red things. But I lived in abject fear of the roast. She considered the roast to be her masterpiece. This delicacy was made by marinating a slab of mystery meat from the bargain bin at Kroger's overnight in Campbell's cream of mushroom soup. It was then simmered all day until it had the consistency of my father's work boots. For the final touch, she sprinkled her creation with turkeys, canned French onion rings. Inevitably, the side dish served with it was canned peas. I hated peas. I still hate peas. On roast nights, I hid under the attic stairs reading Nancy Drew books by flashlight, hoping I had so many brothers and sisters I wouldn't be missed at dinner. Why I kept trying that trick, I don't know, because she did a head count at every meal and knew where all my hiding places were. Besides, she had those troublesome premonitions. One night when I was 16, I snuck out to meet Danny O'Malley behind his father's barn. It wasn't even 10 o'clock, and Danny was teaching me how to French kiss, when I suddenly knew something was terribly wrong at home. I didn't think something was wrong. I knew it was wrong. Like how my mother said her premonitions were. I had to go home. Danny tried to dissuade me, and normally there was nothing that could tear me away from him, but there was no stopping me that night. I left him sitting alone in the moonlight and raced the half-mile home as fast as I could, but I wasn't fast enough. My mother had died 10 minutes before I got home. I wish there was a way to tell her how much it meant to me that she came to find me that night. It made her death a little easier to take. I wish I could tell her the things I couldn't as a 16-year-old snotty teenager. Like how lithe and graceful she was in the water, how beautiful her slender wrists and ankles were, how funny she was. I thank her for showing me how to do a swan dive off the high board and how to teach our parrot to say, "Listen to your mother." I gladly eat the roast and a plate of peas on the side while listening to her play the ukulele, dressed in a clown suit, while we drove around town in a convertible with the top down, just to have that chance. Thank you.